Cool.
So is this when are we clapping?
Yeah. If you want, whenever. Yeah.
Is that the start of the show?
I mean, no, it's just like where I can sync the audio,
Ah.
so I can later find that and line it up.
Okay.
You know.
Do you do a lot of editing work?
A little bit, but surprisingly, the first guest in the video, the first 5 were not video, they're just audio only.
Okay.
But then I saw that it's still only $20 for web. All right.
Yeah, why not? I
So
mean, pretty cheap. Does adding a webcam to the production like kind of help you?
In the sense that I can't afford.
I would be strictly
to
audio.
do the lip sync, any of the fucking shit, putting it on iTunes, any of that. I can't afford to pay for hosting of the podcast, so I just put it on YouTube. So in the sense that the only outlet for it is YouTube.
I mean, don't like 1 trillion videos get watched on YouTube a day. You know, like
Well, yeah,
it's a decent place to.
It is, but it's better with video. Better results
Yes.
with video. So.
Well, I don't know. I watch a lot of those like music videos that have not the music video.
Oh yeah,
you know, like copyrighted
same.
things.
I listen to a ton of audio, even podcasts. They're just, but I know that most people want to see the fucking asshole they're listening to.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of like I'm kind of figuring out like I've always known that I'm not like a lot of people, but like now I'm realizing like there's people like watching. Like I'm coming to realize like how addictive television is and how addictive like a visual presentation is.
Yeah.
It's
even for when you're not paying attention. Even one of the other.
now I'm paying attention, but
yeah.
I'm not paying attention to my life. I'm paying attention to
right, but in a very passive way, like just something's just.
Well, I'm also stoned out of my mind.
Yeah, exactly, or whatever.
So,
yeah. But they were saying something like they even now there's I think it was Jeremy. Was saying that like he just goes to YouTube as the same he used to go to TV. Just not looking for anything, just whatever it tells me, options, whatever, just pick one and sit back and relax, kind of like TV, you know.
Yeah.
And in that sense, YouTube is become whatever, more like that.
I mean, it's giving you more options, so then half the time you're just sitting there like, what am I thinking about watching?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that should motivate a person to get out of the house. And that, like, in my head, it motivates me quite well. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Get up and go do something. It's really, like, it helps my depression more than it's away.
Right, whereas other people probably get caught in the pattern of just watching over and over again. It stimulates in you the reverse of it.
But I'm not moving. So, like, my brain says, like,
you don't get up?
I don't get up.
Oh, well, then there you go.
That's the downside of being a mildly sad person most of your life.
Right, yeah. No, I'm...
And I'm not even, like, sad when I'm doing it. It's more like a frustration, because I feel like, I should be doing something, and then I'm not.
Well, I think all sadness and depression
being aware of
is
like the worst.
The root of that, or the source of that, is a frustration with how things are. And so you're like, fuck. There's at a certain point of a certain level of futility, human beings, any animal, I think, just shuts off. It's like, all right, whatever the fuck. If this is how I'm gonna be like treated, I'm just on fucking. I'm just gonna sit and not do it.
Well, it's more like this is how I'm gonna treat myself.
Right. But people get so bombarded with circumstance or whatever,
And like in my family, like treating yourself is always like pretty much pampering yourself. So like just phrasing it that way, like I should be pampering my life as much as possible
to get out of the depression.
To get out of it, because growing up and before I started, just trying to save money, which is the worst thing you could do, but also very beneficial for your life.
Yeah.
But it's because I had to work, and I just like being in debt and not having that stability that I was familiar with, like, really changed me. And then, like, now I'm a lot like my mom when I was growing up, my mom worked like 6 jobs, and out of the 6 jobs, I worked 3 of those jobs with her, and like I don't know where I was gonna go with that.
I think you're like financial instability can lead to depression as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of the frustration I was talking about.
I'm super happy when I work. It's very nostalgic for me. Sometimes I feel like my mom could be there, you know, and especially when I'm doing like cleaning gigs,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how it was. You know, we'd show up and then we would separate in the building and come back and clean, and then when
Oh,
we're
yeah,
done
so you have a lot of
cleaning.
nostalgia with that particular job or whatever associated with that. But
Yeah.
in general, like
Or in
working,
general,
you-
I think about my mom every day. I mean, she's a
Right,
big
right,
part of my life.
right.
Single mother.
Mm-hmm.
So she means, or I mean a lot to her.
Hell yeah.
You know, and that means something.
Yeah.
I could live without her. She's my mom. You know how kids are.
Right.
It's just
Right.
boring hanging out with your mom sometimes.
Yeah, any parent or authority figure, it's like
Yeah.
after a certain point, it's like, all right, yeah, you want some freedom, whatever. But yeah, in general though, when you're working on stuff, when you're working, you're at least you're making progress. You're at least aside from nostalgia value, you're also like, okay, I can, you got like whatever, you got your head down, just pushing forward, trying to fucking make, you're at least
ends
making
meet.
something. Yeah, exactly.
But
So
like my
there's-
mom never being around growing up, like I mean, then seeing, like I understand why like having a kid was very beneficial for her because it gave her an opportunity to go socialize. She made friends through my friends, the parents' friends, and like.
And that wasn't an intentional thing.
Oh, it wasn't intentional. I was an unintentional birth, I think.
Yeah, okay. I think most are.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I love the story of my parents. My parents met when they were kids.
Hell yeah.
Like teenagers. I recently found this out. I always assumed they met in college because they met at a university in Decorah, Iowa. It's a small, I think it's a Catholic university or Catholic college, private college. But that was her hometown. And my dad had gone down there during a summer. He took a summer course in pottery, ceramics, and she worked in the kitchen, and they met. Their first kiss was my mom and dad, or my mom's first kiss was my dad. My dad probably had already been around the world. He was a little badass. But they said then he goes home. He goes back to Madison, Wisconsin, and she lives her life all teenage years. Never talking. My dad calls her out of the blue one day and says, that he wants to come down and see her again. And comes down. He leaves again, and she always really appreciated that. And she calls him, or she calls my grandmother, and then my dad's living in Texas at the time, and she gets my dad's number, goes down to Texas, and says, "I'm here. I love you." And let's get married. I don't know if I was already inside my mom, if I'd already been created at that point, or if. So I don't know how long they were down in Texas before.
Right.
I was born, but it was a pretty quick process from what I'm kind of been familiarized with.
Hell yeah.
So, but just to meet as children, and then I don't know, that was a really cute story.
Yeah, that's some the old school whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it'll probably still happen, but like.
I don't know. I don't know if too many parents my dad took a train. He caught a train, and not he just hopped on a train and he went down there. He hitchhiked all the way down to see my mom.
Something else
after
more
7
people
years,
did in the 70s.
Yeah, 70 stuff.
More people littered and did
Train hopping
and hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking, yeah. My father hitchhiked all over the country.
Was it safer then? I don't know, but like people did it.
Yeah, he survived.
Yeah.
He had some crazy stories, but very few about him ever being in danger. But I'm sure there were quite a few.
Right.
I mean, he told me about a lot of the scars.
But maybe
and
it was
stuff.
like fucking Lyft and Uber or whatever back in the day. Just like hitchhiking, just fucking thumb on the side of the road kind of thing.
More or less, I think so.
Most people would just be chill.
But you'd be
Helping
like, if
someone
a
out.
taxi came up to you, you'd be like, "No, leave.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay you anything."
Right,
You know?
exactly.
The goodwill of people.
Right.
Do you think
right.
that's still around?
Yeah. Maybe in a
but-
different place because people are
Yeah.
more alert to threats like, nobody's going to pick somebody up on the side of the road that's not
My
via a
mom
phone
would.
app. Right,
you
right.
know?
Older people
But,
might
you know,
still.
this is when she was younger. When she was probably maybe late 20s.
Yeah, but that was
early
in the
30s.
70s or whatever, or 80s or whatever. Right?
No, that was like in the 90s.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I had a friend who did it in the 90s.
My mom, yeah.
He would not pick people up. He would hitchhike.
He would hitchhike, yeah. My mom would pick up the hitchhikers, and rarely she would get a good, decent person. Like, there'd always be these crazy people coming to the house. We didn't live in a bad
And she'd
neighborhood.
bring him to the house.
No, they'd find out where she lived.
Oh, fuck.
You know, or they would live kind of nearby. So she would. And my mom's very open. You know,
That's
super nice. And maybe a few times like she did invite them over. Like, oh, do you want to come over for do you need coffee or do you want?
Right,
and
right.
usually they weren't. Usually they were drug addicts. You know,
Okay.
we found out that our neighborhood was a hub for rehabilitation. Is it like second housing or? It's sober living, but for like a lot of convicts.
halfway house. Sort
Halfway
of
house,
thing?
yeah, halfway houses, for a lot
Addicts
of
and stuff.
like offenders that were they weren't like violent offenders.
Right.
They weren't violent offenders, or they're pedophiles,
They weren't. Then.
or they were pedophiles.
Oh, what?
There was like there's like a map you can go to look
She
up
wasn't
where.
inviting them.
I don't think we got followed home one time. I remember my mom, like, I don't know if they were, like, threatening
What the
her
fuck?
or if they threatened me, but, like,
Mhm.
I remember, like, I was fishing, and my mom was like, pack up the stuff, we gotta go, and we got in the car, and we, like, really wasn't telling me what was up, but, like, I noticed that somebody had been following us, because there was two guys, that were fishing nearby, and they'd come and talk to me earlier, and we probably just talked about fishing, you know, because you know I've been doing that
Because
for years.
that's them.
What I was doing, you know, I was fishing. You know, they're probably like, "Hey, is
And
it
that's
lighting over
their
here?"
flirting.
Or yeah, whatever it was. But then they were talking to my mom, and then all of a sudden I'm in the car, and
And you're getting
we're
the fuck out of
speeding
there.
away.
Yeah.
We're speeding away, and they're coming after us.
Oh shit.
And my mom pulls one of those, like, you know, she turns into a parking lot, parks the car, and says, "Get down," you know? And, you know, they drove by and whatnot. It was, you know, I have no idea, like, why that happened. I should re-ask her that.
Yeah. But at least she was alert to that, right? You know, so in general, you know, she know, you
There
know,
was probably actually nothing that was going on.
doesn't matter. Like you got to be careful. Like fucking.
That's why I just never brought my mom anywhere.
No,
I mean,
great.
my mom was a person who would call
I would
me
just
if
go
she
fishing
heard,
and talk to older dudes.
Who else fishes, dude? They're all old dudes.
I know, but even then, they were like, yeah. I know people used to like whatever. There was like the
See, the
fucking,
thing is, like, but I was the type of kid, like, if they were like, "Hey, do you want to go out on a boat and fish?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go on the fucking boat."
right, and there was a lot of.
But I'm also
there
the
was
type of kid
more-
that if they did touch me and we were out on a boat, they wouldn't be coming back.
Right, exactly. But and back in the day, I mean, even in the '80s, there's people have made fun of it online or whatever. The whole Doc Brown, not Morty, whatever the fuck Michael J. Fox's character was before Rick and Morty took it over.
Doc Brown.
No, Michael J. Fox. Marty.
Marty. Yeah, Marty McFly.
That whole thing that like a teenage boy would go hang out with an old man was like a whatever, no problem. You know, that kind of thing, and people make fun of that.
Well, wasn't he his No, that's Rick and Morty. Is his grandfather.
Yeah.
But were they not related?
No, they weren't related.
Doc and.
Yeah, no, they were just whatever pals somehow.
Yeah, I guess you do see that a lot in like '80s films where like there's a
Yeah,
kid that goes and hangs out with some like kooky scientist or.
right, or
The most
eccentric
recent
old
one
dude or
is
whatever.
Eight-Legged Freaks did that.
I haven't seen that.
You've never seen it? It's a pretty good. I think it's actually a really good movie.
Okay, hell
It's
yeah.
arachnophobia with larger spiders.
Okay, hell yeah.
But there's a kid in there that has, and he's not an older guy, but he's like, he's probably like in his 20s. And he's the first to die. You know, in horror films, you know what that means. He was probably having sex with a kid, because only people who have sex die in horror films.
That's one of those unwritten laws of, or maybe not written laws of horror films.
That's probably not what they intended in this film. It seemed like a very nice relationship.
Right. And there's something to be said for later a mentoring thing. You know, like when you're in your 20s or whatever. But there's that whole freakish like ancient Sparta pedophile thing, where
I'm not aware of that.
apparently their military culture was such that the authority structure of the society was such that they had a what would you call it, like a knight page sort of or squire relationship or whatever, or, mentoring under, I forget what the fuck somebody's
Okay.
telling me, something like you're apprenticing under
Okay.
someone, but that soldier he raped
Would
you in the
ram
ass every day,
Oh, well, that's
and that was part of your welcome to the military.
that's terrible.
Yeah, it's fucking. But yeah, that's
Now
the
they're like,
horrific-
don't have sex in the military at all. You know?
Yeah, they
We
try,
don't want
I
to know
guess.
anything about any genitalia.
Right.
They've become the stereotypical parents, like the fearful parents. Like, oh, we don't want to know about your, we don't know about your sexual life.
Yeah, and I mean,
Keep that to yourself
even
and-
still, like because there are a lot of aggro dudes who join any country's military, and it's like, what are you doing? You're gonna go hang out with a bunch of dudes. Like, if you're gay, awesome, but if you're not, what the fuck? Like, why the fuck would you? You know, there are a lot of very super macho guys that are like not realizing they're giving up any prospect of sex life by going overseas.
Except to rape and pillage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess they can go to the country they're invading and tear shit up
Or the local bar.
horrifically, like the ancient peoples and current people still do. Yeah, and the local bar, and
Yeah.
throw their weight around.
Yeah.
It's a horrific world. So I guess that's what they.
That's what you want. That's what I always want. So
Oh,
is that
yeah.
the trash world? So I guess
Yeah.
explain this trash world.
I don't know. I just hate it. I just hate this. I just think we could be like so much further than we are, in terms of human society, and solving these sorts of things. Like then the degree to which we've solved, and I think some philosophers have talked sort of about this sort of thing, where the degree to which we've achieved progress technologically,
Yeah.
in certain sciences like physics, chemistry, astounding levels of progress. Yet the degree to which we have achieved progress in political science, sociology, psychology, just weak, dog shit levels of progress. Like we're still using models of governance from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. We're still using, there's been a little bit of progress, but we're not still using the models of the universe for physics that we used, 2,000 years ago or whatever, And so there's this whole break with where
Okay, so
we could be.
what you're saying is physics has changed over 2,000 years, but generally, like the how we live as civilization, the basic.
Yeah,
Parts of
the basic mechanisms, the basic motors of it, the basic impetus, the push of it, the fact that I complain on stage all the time about how we still base our society economically, our economic system, and almost every economic system in the world, most of them at least, is based on coercion, that you will work or you will starve and be homeless.
Well, see, before I ate that sandwich before here,
Mm-hmm.
I do this weird thing where I eat every other day at 5 o'clock.
That is a weird thing.
Yeah.
You don't eat every day?
It is, sometimes I don't.
Fuck.
It's because I work.
Yeah, you're working all the time.
Yeah, getting here it was easy, but I did it all, everything in an hour. I woke up, I didn't shower, I didn't do it, I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
But just that hour of, I have to be prepared to do something in an hour.
Right.
Or almost immediately after I wake up, there was no process of getting up. And I had just went to bed. I got off work at 7 o'clock this morning. I had overtime
Okay.
last night, and I might go in tonight too, because I'm addicted to
Right.
getting to my goals.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
really addicted to working. I do enjoy
That's just
it,
part of the
but
process of
yeah.
getting to the goals.
I'll work on anything. I'd rather work on my dreams or work on helping people in a related field of interest. And that's kind of why I did the Airbnb. Is I worked for a comedian. He had more opportunity to find road work, and he went on a world tour, at least to another country. But working for someone that I know is also going to benefit to obtain their dream. It's also kind of that's important to me.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that sense, though, you don't eat every day. Like, what?
No, not really. Maybe like.
Are you hungry on the day that you don't eat?
It's weird.
No, I guess not enough to
I am
eat.
hungry. It's like I usually am hungry, but I'll smoke a couple cigarettes and then it'll make me not know what I want to eat, and then I smoke a little bit of pot, then I get really confused and indecisive what I should eat.
And then you just don't eat.
And then I just don't eat.
Me, I start to feel sick if I don't eat. Shit, after like 8 hours or something, I'll start to feel like. Ugh.
I do get that. I get some stomach pains and whatnot, and that's when I'm like, dude, just fucking go get something.
Yeah.
And before, sometimes I get super indecisive. Like, I will walk miles before I choose a place, or I faint in front of a place and just say, you gotta feed me, I'm hungry. But then I walk into some places after walking 14 miles, sweaty, on a hot day, and then I walk into these places and they think I'm some homeless dude and I don't have any money, and I'll sit and stand, or I'll stand at the bar, waiting for someone, to come over and be like, hey, like, how can I do anything? And just like nothing. And it's usually because I want to go sit outside. That's why I don't sit down at the bar. Like, I'm like, yeah, I want to go sit outside on the patio.
Yeah.
Kind of away from everything. Still enjoy this beautiful day, but I just get stared at. And then I'm like, hey, man, can I get a menu? They're like, oh, we didn't know you wanted anything. Just like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know I
Oh no, I get that I get that look and treatment everywhere I go.
Yeah.
It's part of the. Yeah.
And see, that's like. Those are the shitty things about society that I don't like.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
I don't mind the the problems with government and.
You don't mind there being homeless people. You mind how people treat homeless people.
Yeah. I think you should treat all good people in a good way.
Well, yeah, but I think
and even
also
people who are like a little bit of an asshole, or they could be making mistakes, or I mean, there's.
But by that logic, though, if you think that you should treat all people in a good way, or all good people in a good way, I would say that, yeah, you should not coerce them to work under threat of starvation.
Well, those aren't good people.
Who are doing that.
Well, I mean, if that's their intention. If that's literally their intention.
Well,
sometimes there's no.
That's the intention of an economic system. There has to
Well,
be
that's
some,
the intention of a system that's not a real person.
But it's set up by real people. Real people who are definitely psychopaths, but...
Yeah. But, I mean, again,
nonetheless.
that's an individual who makes a decision to, take advantage of people.
Right.
Like,
which there are many. And we have
so, like, I've been, here's an example I've been trying to, like, kind of go over in my head. There's a commercial called Fair, and a lot of, it's called Fair. And it's a app where you can buy a car and work for Uber. And I know a lot of Uber drivers, when I talk to them about, like, side gigging and whatnot, or making money, they always offer, like, hey, why don't you, become an Uber driver? And they always, here's what they say. I'm like, well, how much, Uber will give you a car, but you have to work for them. Give you a car, but you work for us. $200 a month. If you do 100 rides a week, we'll pay for the car. And I was like, well, how long does 100 rides take you, typically? And they were like 10 to 12 hours a day.
Wow.
So.
Every day.
Pretty much.
But you get to use this car.
But you get to use the car. You have to work 10 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And we'll give you a car that we own. Or they own.
Yeah, is that indentured servitude? Is that some sort of thing like that?
It sounds like it, right?
It does ring that bell.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
That's even advertised too much, because once you advertise it, people are like, oh, that's a good deal. I'm going to get a car.
Right. In a more ruthless economic system, you can actually offer people, hey, would you like to be my slave?
It's like this mentality of do more. You can do more, but really, in reality, they're like, oh, no, you're going to do a lot less of what you want. Right. But you're going to do more of what we want.
Right.
And see, that's
and they're not even really giving you that much.
And they're not.
Right.
They're actually making you, because if you don't, guess what? If you don't meet the road or the ride quota for the week,
you have to pay.
You have to pay. And then you also have to sacrifice the job that you have in order just to have a car to start a shittier job.
Yeah, Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah, those companies are also. I mean, just the basic format of all those. Even the delivery companies and the rideshare companies are all exploiting people's. They're
It's not
mortgaging the
even-
future of their car. Even
But it's
They're
not
like-
even the company. It's not specifically the company that's doing it. The company is just the platform. And I
Right.
understand their arguments. So a lot of the problems are, if you go on YouTube, or not YouTube, if you go on Craigslist or a job posting website, and there's been several guys around the country that have done this, or people, but there was one guy in New York that made millions off this. He just hired Uber drivers. He was an Uber driver, but then Uber was like, they have that incentive where they say, find a new driver once they complete their first, 60 rides,
Mhm.
you get to split, a bonus package. So, you get you get $500, I get $500. This dude signed up thousands of people, made it into a company.
Huh.
I mean, not legit,
But he
obviously,
did it.
but I mean, it's also, he had the opportunity, and how legit. All you're doing is saying, hey, there's a job opportunity,
Right.
you
Right.
take it.
Right.
So then you profit off that. And a lot of people did that. Not to his extent. I mean, making millions
But
of
in
dollars.
general.
But, almost every Uber driver that I've talked to about making extra money, or potentially, they're always like, hey, you should sign up for Uber, because they get the incentive. They get
Right.
an extra $500 or
Right.
$1,000, $250,
Right.
whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So all these people are exploiting, really, themselves to get that little extra gain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and
And
if
it's
you
not the
factor in
company's
what they
fault.
really. Well, I'd
Because you
argue
can
that
track
is.
it down. You can track it down to the company should be like, it's just not allowed,
Exactly. Or the law. Yeah.
or the law.
Yeah. That's where.
And I
it
feel like the
comes
law should actually have a say in that, because it is a matter, because it's not illegal for someone to say, like, hey, there's a job opportunity.
Right.
And it's not illegal for someone to take a bad job. So these companies are working within some, and it's just, people should be smarter.
Right. But also, people are in it like a.
And a lot of
Talked about
people,
on stage. A lot of people are in a desperate situation, and a labor market exploits that. So I would argue that actually that if in a completely unregulated labor market or economic system, all paths lead towards slavery. Like, even if they're not at first,
Mhm.
it just will increasingly, the dynamical system moves towards indentured servitude and slavery. If you don't have a way to stop that motion, that's where all the vectors are headed, as far as like the manipulation of that, the increasingly severe manipulation of people's increasingly shitty situation,
yeah.
and it'll just flow towards that state.
Yeah, the opposite, but I also think that Uber and Lyft and all these other gig jobs are beneficial, because you can work on your own time.
Yeah, there's a freedom to it, which
There's
is
a freedom
great.
to it.
Yeah, but that's their lure, which then they're not really even paying that much if you take into the account of gas and the mileage on the car.
And that's the other thing. Some people buy brand new cars.
Yeah.
This is another, like, you be your own CEO sort of bullshit
Yeah.
ideology.
Yeah.
You just bought something for a company you started, but now you're already $20,000 in the hole,
Mm-hmm.
or $30,000 in the hole. You started a company where you've already lost money.
Yeah, which happens a lot, but that's not likely to be made back. Like, in a very, I don't know how many Uber drivers make, like,
Some of them do very well.
$70,000 a year. Well, that they can immediately
Some of them do.
pay back the car and then some,
Some of them can. It is possible.
but not in
But
the
not
vast
everybody.
majority of cases. Not even not even near half.
Yeah, but
So
it is
it's-
possible.
Right, and
that's the thing.
that's the classic sale too.
But then
like,
I also like-
if I can do it, anybody. No, if you can do it, a few people can do it, and everybody else will think they can do it and fail.
Yeah, well, the other thing I find funny about the whole rideshare community is these companies want to phase out drivers completely. They just want to go automated, which I think is crazy.
But
I don't think it's ever going to happen.
it'll probably happen within 20 years.
But
The
why?
programming is getting really good. That shit, the AI shit.
Then
is
just
really
instead of focusing on
I mean, I'm not for it, but it's
Yeah,
it's
I'm
definitely, I
definitely-
see
yeah, that's
the
one thing.
technology.
Oh, I can see. I
the
mean, there's
capability
already
of it.
Tesla drivers sleeping on the
Yeah,
road. You
yeah.
know, I mean, but why have that? Like, instead of, I think there should be like, if I think a good government would push public transit on, or a more efficient way to get around, because now you're giving everybody their own private car
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah,
not
that's,
drive.
That's the old argument. I mean, even before automation, the argument that the oil companies are pushing people to have individual cars because that'll use more than public transport and all that, and they're just trying to maximize their profit
Yeah.
and make a completely inefficient system just because they want money, which is very common in the history of economics too. Like certain industries being like, yeah, I will take a shit on a whole society for my gold. Like that's just the way that a
I feel
company
like
will
it's
work.
everybody though.
It's everybody.
I just like, when you're trying to go after a goal, like anyone who shits on your goal is pretty much shit to you.
Right, exactly.
You know?
It's all relative because everybody's in
It
this.
just depends on the
huge-
intention of the goal,
Right, right, and most goals are selfish, at least to the extent of survival. That's the whole thing. Under a system where you are coerced to work under threat of starvation or homelessness, at a certain point, even if you're the most ethical person in the world, you're going to start thinking, man, if I don't be a little shitty, I'm going to starve. And so
Yeah.
the system kind of incentivizes an increasingly unethical attitude on the part of the population. Maybe they're still a good person, but they have to take advantage of people to some extent.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, a lot of people, and I think Jeremy McKiernan, we were talking, another comic, he was saying that he noticed a homeless dude one time, like, something to the effect that he noticed that the homeless dude was homeless because he was too ethical. That he had a moral problem with, like when he asked him for money,
Mhm.
and then later, he had change to give to the dude, and he saw the dude. He's like, "Hey, I got change. I can give you, whatever, a couple bucks or whatever." The dude was like, "Oh no, it's all right. I got it." And he was like, "But you're gonna need it for later." He was like, "No, I don't feel comfortable like, or whatever." So it was like in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases that I might make the argument that it's possible that a lot of homeless people are there because they refused to make that sacrifice of their ethics for their own survival or for their own well-being.
Well, their survival is different. Their ethics are different. Usually
Right,
they typically have a goal, a daily goal, or their goals are short term.
Right,
I
that
need
too.
$10
Right,
now,
right.
so I can get food, or I can
Right,
get.
their goal horizon has a small radius.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So then, when someone approaches them like, "Hey, for later," they're like, "No, I already got what I wanted, and I don't want anything right now."
Mm-hmm. And
Are
he
you an
he
alien?
was like, it weirded him out because he was like, "You have no conception of later, and like you're gonna need this later,
But they'll always get it
Right,
because
right,
there's so many people like that Jeremy guy
right,
that
right,
will be,
right. But
offering
why
you-
not get his money and the later?
Because now that guy has money, he lives on the street, and he could get beat up for it.
Oh, so there's a risk. He can't put it in the bank or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he could, but he probably
You know,
doesn't. I don't know how
there's-
many homeless people have bank accounts. Maybe a lot.
Some of them do. There was
Oh,
this woman
definitely.
who
I know people who do.
There was a woman who, she was the battery lady. She would find batteries and keep them. She had beds of them underneath the bridge. I used to fish near there, and I found her beds
with
one
older
time.
dudes.
Yeah, my father.
No.
Yeah. I never took any other older dudes to this particular fishing hole. Had really
Okay.
good. It was good for carp and muskie and
Dude, my
pike and stuff
fishing
like that.
knowledge is
no, it's fine. They're fish. They're really nice game fish.
okay.
Um,
Tasty fish.
So, the bag lady, or the battery lady, she had whatever it was. She ended up in the newspaper because she was like, the family finally, found out where she was, and there was a story about it in the paper. She had over like $30,000 in the bank.
Huh.
That
she just saved up from panhandling for
could be.
years
There
and
was a
years
guy.
and years?
This is kind of a cool story. There was an old guy. There was a homeless dude. I really don't know how he ended up on the street, but he had this silver guitar and he played country music out on the street, blues and country music. And he did it for most of my. He played downtown Madison, Wisconsin, and he collected enough money off of playing that over, I think, a decade to buy a home. and he moved a couple of the homeless people that he knew into the home with him.
Okay, yeah, but he transitioned out of homelessness. One of the few upwardly
Yeah.
mobile,
And he was a
situations.
very, very, very talented performer.
Hell yeah.
And he would just sit, and he had the the long white like mustache, that handlebar mustache, and he would just wail on his guitar. It was a silver like tin.
Yeah, steel guitar, or whatever.
Steel guitar. Yeah. I would see him, almost every day down there, or whenever. I mean, it was pretty much homeless.
But he eventually earned his way out, and maybe that's what she
Yeah.
was trying to do too with her 30K or whatever. She was trying to save up.
No, I
enough
think she
to
was just
buy a
crazy
little house
because
or
I think
something.
she had batteries.
Okay.
That was her thing. She liked batteries.
She drank battery acid for fun.
Yeah, she might have,
whatever.
I think she originally she had like a job and she was living off of. I think she went nuts, like she had some sort of like breakdown, and she quit a job and then she became homeless.
See, this is what I wonder.
The mental
also.
illness is a different way.
But I would argue that, as far as the trajectories of the vectors, like it's very possible that a lot of the mental illness and the, like you said, she had a breakdown. A lot of that is due from circumstance. Now, sometimes it's abusive circumstance, but all the times it's economically abusive circumstances where you failed so miserably financially that like you're on the verge of starvation or whatever, and you crack, and you just now you're shitting yourself on the side of the road because you fucking lost it because you basically failed in this world to the such to whatever extent that you were so pressured, you were trying to fucking work so hard that you broke under the pressure.
My mom was like that.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's probably common, that a lot of the homeless people are people who were hit with economic circumstances.
Especially right after the recession of 2009 and after the bubble.
Oh yeah.
Because we were a quite wealthy family. We weren't like well off, but it was very
middle class or whatever.
I really don't know how to explain it.
Right.
I mean, my mom, she didn't have a college degree. She's a very brilliant woman, but my dad was a criminal and a construction worker. So like the first few years of my life before my dad went to jail, I mean, it was probably just like we were just a very upper, lower class family. And then it was a single parenthood. My father was in jail, and my mom just worked a bunch of different jobs. And then she started a business, and once that business took off, and she started another one, and then she started another one. She started businesses over and over. She had 3 going. One guy embezzled a bunch of money, lost the business, and then she worked in print and in janitorial. So the print business tanked completely. I wish I had been a little older at the time because I would have been like, online, get them online, hook them. Because she was selling subscriptions, like newspaper subscriptions. She worked for the newspaper, and she had an idea where instead of selling individual subscriptions to newspapers to people, she would just go to like a building, like a management company, and say, hey, why don't you just include a free newspaper with every apartment? And everybody was like, that's a really good idea. So like she would sell hundreds of subscriptions at a time, and she would get commission off that.
Wow.
And it was like I think she was making like $1 per.
But then her partner embezzled the money. Didn't get
different.
Oh, that was different. Okay.
That was a bar business.
Okay.
She met this guy at a. I had recently committed a crime, and I needed to do community service. And this guy had also recently committed a crime, and he was doing community service. And he was in the Huber program, work release.
Okay.
And they met, and he was just a really smooth talker, but come to find out he it was the same old bit again and again. He did it to one other person before, after my mom, and then like I think 2 people before my mom, and just like he would, and it was the same act. It was the same, and it was so crazy. Like he would do the same. He'd use the same bands. He'd use the same performers. The same like he would hire the same people to work for the bar, and it was like this whole thing. It was weird.
And he stole
He stole mostly ticket sales. He would lie about he would how much money was made on a given night, or sometimes like we wouldn't even like.
So if any of you are out there watching and are interested in conning people, no.
Oh, yeah,
No, it's fucking horrible. And
Yeah.
like they fucking, and he got away with it?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you call the cops on him or whatever?
We did.
Alright.
So.
But he was never caught red-handed or whatever with it.
He had we called the cops, and we went out to the business because we knew he was there and we wanted him to leave. And we told the cops, look, he has company property. He cannot leave with anything. And since I don't know, my mom was a little frustrated. They were like, we don't want you guys to be in the same room. They let the guy go out the back door with the company computer, all the paperwork that
all the evidence,
and I even was like, police officer, he has cocaine in his possession. He's on parole.
So you're just trying to get him any way you can get him at that point, and but why? I'm wondering why did they let him walk out with evidence?
Because he's just a really good talker. His girlfriend came, picked him up and back. They were like, go ahead, call somebody.
A really good talker, like a manipulative sociopath.
Yeah, and the cops come out. Well, could we just let him go? It's like, because he wasn't doing anything illegal. They didn't even think my mom owned the business.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing of that. I don't know. It's fucking. But the point is, it's risky being in business because oftentimes your whatever partner or whatever can totally steal from you. And if you're fucking successful at all, it's less likely to be successful at all at starting a business. But it can be, people can do very well or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of pressure. And since there's a statistical kind of map of possibilities, most people are not going to be successful. And so when they all fail, they're living in tents on the side of the road a lot of the time after the fact.
Yeah.
But she ended up doing all right. You were saying.
She's doing better.
Okay,
there was
right, but not like she didn't.
She never completely gave up, but she did lose a lot of her confidence.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. But that's what we were talking about, the connection between economic pressure and mental illness, which is what I've been writing a lot of material about or whatever recently, and like that whole. That a lot of it is caused by that. That a lot of even the people who end up technically doing all right, for the rest of their lives, the pressure of it, a lot of the depression, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of what's considered mental illness is caused by circumstance, particularly financial circumstance. There's a couple things, other things like schizophrenia that's caused by cat shit or whatever. Don't, if you're a pregnant mother, don't be near cats at all. Or whatever.
Cat shit gives you schizophrenia?
Apparently it increases at 6-fold probability of getting it or some shit like that. If when the woman's pregnant and when the kid's a baby to toddler to, I don't remember the age, don't have a fucking cat around or whatever, because it increases the probability. It's not a guarantee by any means, but there's a parasite that if you get it as an adult, apparently it's not like that big a deal. But if you get it when you're more immunocompromised or whatever as a child or whatever, or pregnant, fetus.
In teenage years, we had 5 cats growing up.
Yeah, I had a cat when I was a teenager, but not before that.
Oh yeah, most of my life we had cats.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I can.
But
they had diarrhea a lot.
It's still not a high percentage of people that have it, but of the people who have it, it increases dramatically the probability.
Yeah.
If there was a cat around the pregnant mother or the baby or whatever.
Yeah.
But my point is that certain mental illnesses are severe and caused by genetics or environmental conditions, but a lot of them, I would argue, are caused by the environmental condition of a shitty economic system, a ruthless, let's say, economic system, a more ruthless. It ain't fucking medieval feudalism or whatever, but it's still shitty in a lot of ways, and we could repair those ways, but we won't.
Well, I really don't think it's up to the system to repair or to. It's I feel like it's your own thing.
That's
you have
the
to
common
figure it
perception.
out.
That's the common. But I would argue that that like I was saying before, as far as physics versus sociology and psychology and anthropology and political science, that one of the technological developments in that domain that would bring us to a more modern society would be the resolution of using threat as a motor for economic progress and productivity.
And what do you mean by that?
That if you pull away, and psychologists already know that threat's a shitty motivator or whatever, and there's the whole hierarchy of needs things, you know, like that people are, when they're more comfortable, when they're not worried about survival, they produce much more, they innovate far greater, you know, all that. It's a more constructive environment or whatever, so in that sense that you could create
an environment that you need to create in your own mind.
And a person is capable of doing
Or
that
at least
to a
being
certain
aware.
extent, but
Yeah.
so is a society. Like I would say, I criticize the American system a lot, but America has a much better system than many others, historically speaking, and today, as far as that's concerned. It is less ruthless, partly because a lot of people organized 100 years ago, or 80 years ago, you know, and demanded those changes. But it was because of those popular movements that forced the government and the corporate sector to change its behavior, and that's probably the only way that we can achieve it now. But it would help if we had some scientific, you know, some laws, so to speak, or some, like, not laws, but scientific laws that were discovered about, oh, you know, this mathematical relationship to this, holy shit, look at this, we can now, you know, if they make some discoveries on that sense, and similarly to how physics made a bunch of discoveries, we're so far behind. You know, there's very little. I mean, there's some math, but it's usually just like, you know.
I feel like if a system's been used for just a long time, it should be easy for a normal person to manipulate it into their favor.
I mean, most people do all right.
Because it should be simple.
Most people do all right. In this country, most people do all right. In many countries, most people do not do all right. But in some countries, everyone does kind of all right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying those countries are perfect. They have their own flaws or whatever. But like, there are real mechanisms, real things that can be done.
I guess, can you give me like
to
an example
things
of
like a society where there's less ruthless?
No, just like an example of a change that happened within the system that made it better.
Like within the American system, all the changes that happened in the 20th century that made it easier for people to have a middle class life, let's say,
Okay.
As opposed to being treated like peasants or whatever, which could have been the case.
Yeah.
They organized, they demanded, you know, the New Deal, all of those changes to the way the economic system functions. You know, anti-monopoly laws way before that happened because oil monopolies and other monopolies were totally.
Okay, now I get it.
You know, that sort of, yeah, those sorts of, and again, I don't think that the government should be necessary for those changes, but apparently corporate leaders have their heads so far up their asses that need to be.
Kind of the idea of the invisible hand.
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying because the invisible hand tends towards slavery, oftentimes we need also, you know, another hand to slap the invisible hand around a little bit occasionally to put it into so that it doesn't just descend into indentured servitude sort of treatment. And
well, I mean, inevitably it always does. You just, as a person, realize that's where you're going, because you all.
And
the
that
idea,
causes you to,
everybody gets, it's most of the time. Like this is gonna sound bad, but isn't kind of the stereotype like people are usually tricked into slavery?
Yeah. I mean, there are certain cases where it's an apparatus of violence that forces people overtly, but oftentimes, like the examples we were talking about before, where people don't even realize the more sophisticated. Where it's not considered slavery or chattel slavery, it's considered just an indentured servitude sort of scheme, whereby the people in it, you know, aren't noticing or aren't capable of doing anything about it. They notice it just fine, just like the people in North Korea notice that they live in a dictatorship, but they don't talk about it because it's risky, and they don't do anything about it because they don't know what the fuck to do about it. So.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of that, and I would argue that the entire labor market kind of functions within that zone of, you know, it's a lot better than it could be, but it's a lot worse than it could be. So it could be improved with those sorts of changes. That, for instance, in lieu of the corporate leaders not having their heads up their asses, since they do currently, a law that said you can't coerce people to work. You can't, like, as a system. people have to have a basic subsistence level. They have to have at least a cheap as fuck place to live, and cheap food. That's provided for everyone. You, as by birthright, you are actually entitled to. I know Republicans say you are not entitled to anything. You are entitled to that, and there are actually economic philosophers, or whatever, and there's a very good argument, even libertarian philosophers, that argue that you are actually entitled to. You've heard of the universal basic income.
I know that you
thing
can
that's
go.
come out?
Anyone can go down to social services and sign up for the services.
Right. But it's not sufficient.
It's not sufficient.
Right, and that's the thing. It should be at a level where it's sufficient, and then let the economic forces interact. But no one will be starved beyond, for whatever. Like I have a friend from Finland, and she was like, oh yeah, because I was like, you have homeless people there? She's like, yeah, but they want to be homeless or whatever. She actually said, she was like, we got homeless people there. I was like, pushing her further, like, do you really, like, but they get anything they need, right? She's like, oh yeah, they want to live outside. They're just living because they like camping. They're just permanently camping.
Yeah.
But they have anything they need, they can get. No problem. They have no desperation or ruthless foot on their face the whole time.
Well, I think that's more just our society, because
right, that's what
people
I'm saying.
look down on homeless people often. And I understand that. A lot of them aren't very,
it's hard to deal with mental illness, but again, the mental illness was possibly caused by their financial circumstances.
Yeah.
So like, it's a feedback loop at that point, where it's like, if we fix their economic circumstances before they crack under pressure.
Yeah. But that's going to be nearly impossible, because
it's done some places better than here. And worse than here in other places. But that was my only argument, was that it could.
Well, that's like, because you got to think of there's a lot of people who go to jail, or they work the streets, very hard life, and then that's going to give them a different sort of attitude to how to relate to people.
Right, it makes you a more ruthless person.
Yeah.
When you are in a more ruthless environment. Definitely. So that's one of the things I was talking about.
You'd have to change those ruthless environments to completely eliminate.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was saying. That it erodes the ethics. But that's these countries like Finland is a good example too, or whatever. There's other Scandinavian countries where, by work the streets, I assume you meant suck dick, or whatever. I
meant like selling drugs.
Yeah, selling drugs, weapons,
killing
or
people.
pussy.
Yeah,
right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, so-called illicit trade or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that sort of activity lessens in those other societies. In Denmark, there's not a lot of people doing that shit because there's prostitution, but it's regulated. Yeah, it's legal. It's safe. Medical professionals are there.
On site.
Yeah. Preventing any of the fucked up shit. There's no pimp exploitation, that kind of shit. And same with the other stuff. The people don't need to. Still, there's not a lot of organized crime, drug trade, weapons trade, or whatever, because the people aren't desperate. Those sorts of black market economy situations, I would say, emerge within more ruthless systems, where people are like, get rich or die trying, like that whole stupid.
That's something that's been it's American culture. Right
there. Exactly. And it's I would say it's a fucking ganked system. Like, it should be configured a lot better, and in that sense, those societies are a model for that. You can see they have less violence. You can see they have less all of those things. There's no people, all of that, and the prostitution is legalized. All that,
Yeah.
So while those societies still have flaws, they have solved a lot of things that we could solve, but we probably won't, because the American system has a lot of people benefiting, a lot of corporations benefiting off of it.
It's the one good thing about, there's federal rights, federal laws, state laws. States are kind of coming to a point where, like, all right, we can now kind of play by our own rules. We want to legalize marijuana, we can legalize marijuana.
But there's always, to some extent,
legalize mushrooms, all right, districts. They allow it now just in certain districts or whatnot.
Yeah, Denver got it or whatever. I was talking with someone the other day. It was awesome.
Oregon too. But at a federal level, you do that, and then some states who don't want to participate in that are like, no, you can't. Like, we don't want that.
Right, but that's always been the case, and that's shit, even for slavery, for abortion right now, like, there's a lot of pushback from states where we don't want to.
Like, I think that's when people compare America to other countries or other countries to America, that's what they're not realizing. We're a collection.
Oh, the federalism principle. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Those other countries don't have, the states' rights sort of component to it.
Yeah.
But and not to be like states'
if we
rights
did,
can have
we'd be a
some
lot-
positive
there'd be a
qualities,
lot
but
of
it also
states
has negative
like them.
qualities.
Yeah.
Right, but there's that conflict though of how, at what point is there a fundamental human right that's being violated or whatever? Like in the case of slavery, Mississippi can't say no. Well, no, we're still gonna have slaves. Say you guys do what you want.
Yeah.
We're like, and they did historically. No, we're going to war over that. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So and similarly with abortion, it may come to that. They may totally, as they're currently doing, making abortion increasingly illegal throughout the South.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, the regime may say, no, nah, you can't do that. And they're going to put, if they have to, they'll put the National Guard in there to ensure that abortions are provided for, just like they ensured that schools were desegregated.
Yeah.
And that's very possibly going to happen in the next 10 years.
That'd be great just to
see.
have a televised National Guard individual walking a teenage girl into an abortion. Just like
that would be fucking
protecting
awesome.
lives,
Yeah.
protecting a life to end one.
Yeah, it's fucking great. So yeah, in that sense, it could get to that. So there's a perpetual conflict over the scale of what's, and the whole national borders thing increases that scale again. Like, because nation states are it's its own global configuration of a state system to some extent, and it'll probably eventually evolve towards some sort of fucking, global whatever, commonwealth, whatever the fuck they used to call it. But it's far from that now.
Yeah.
And it'll probably take a hell of a lot of arguing, and probably, because we're stupid primates, a lot of war to get to that. Hopefully not, but probably. I'm going with the run on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like let's
dumb
just stay where we
species.
are, because I mean, I feel like if the more progress in certain fashions, but because once you progress to the furthest point you can progress, isn't that the end of the civilization? Isn't that typically where
There's
it
no
collapses?
further point you can progress. You can
Well, yeah.
keep progressing indefinitely if you manage the progression correctly.
Yeah,
And
I
as far
guess.
as we know, you can keep. I mean.
I guess I mean, if you look at it scientifically, there's probably like if everything is done in a certain way and everything
sustainable
is
way.
sustainable, then it's not going to fail.
Right.
But everything.
But because
Typically
we're
things
shitty
do fail.
humans, we
Well, it's
tend
not
to.
even necessarily shitty humans. We're human.
We
We're-
make mistakes and we intentionally have corruption, so that those
Yeah.
sorts of things can erode the sustainability.
One little problem can you take
Right.
the bottom Jenga piece out,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
above
yeah,
it
yeah.
collapses.
If there's a load-bearing wall that somebody cuts,
Yeah.
it can very much fuck up a whole system. But societies, I think, attempt to be increasingly more robust, so that they can prevent that sort of thing. They don't want themselves being not very stable. Usually, regimes, however authoritarian, are still like very focused on sustainability of the society. That's like the foundational security or whatever. Like I've even heard people who used to work for the government who were like, in no way can abortion rights ever be taken away again. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, because that would threaten the stability of the regime. That America would cease to exist the moment that if you fuck over women like that badly. Now maybe that's not the case. Maybe everyone will be like, okay, and just buckle, because Americans are known for buckling. But it would it's possible also that immediately at the National Guard situation will happen, or the intelligence community, the military will be like, no, you can't fucking do this, because half the population is gonna just be like, yeah, well, we're not a part of this anymore. It's too
I kind of
destabilizing
like how
thing.
there's some women who are completely separating themselves from that. They're creating a movement. It's not birthright, but it's like they're not having sex, and they don't intend on being in a relationship where a child could be brought into the world like this.
Oh, they're trying to just abandon the possibilities of giving birth?
Taking sex away from just no sex, celibacy.
For themselves, or they're like trying to, like, it's
Because
not,
they're just worried about where the world is going. They don't want to bring a child into it.
Well, that's again like a common personal decision that people make. Or
but now
whatever.
they're making a whole movement out of it.
Oh, they're making a movement. It's not the sex strike movement. It's the movement of just for them. They
Yeah,
want to
it's
avoid
like
any
birth,
probability.
It's something birth, like no birth or no birth movement.
We'll do everything that we can that doesn't involve the probability of a birth.
Yeah.
Like we'll still engage in all these behaviors, but nothing that can result in sperm getting to an egg. But again, that's kind of like one of those oversimplifications too, because like, and I say in a bit like on a record that I released, ever since the discovery or whatever, the invention of the birth control pill and the condom, it hasn't been an issue. If you properly use those things, and you can get an abortion. If those things fuck up, you can get an abortion. Ever since that, which is 1972 or whatever, ever since then, you can live a life free of the specter of giving birth.
Yeah.
The horrible, horrible specter of and that's awesome. And that's that's part of the fucking
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't know. I mean,
so
I think people would be.
That movement kind of cropped up in an environment where those things were threatened. Suddenly now abortion for a long time has been very difficult to get in certain parts of the country, more backwoods parts of the country, and
even some metropolitan areas. It's
probably but and the federal government didn't step up yet.
It's they're provided, but there's a shame or kind of like a
exactly. Jesus gets in the way a lot of the time. Other dad gets in the way a lot of the time. Pastor gets whatever the fuck. And there's definitely a lot of ideological manipulation that occurs that is just fucked in that sense. Like, and I do a bit about it or whatever. Like, I'm still writing this component of it, but like I already have released other ones on albums or whatever, where like it's a horrific fact, but like there's like 11,000 rape babies that are born every year.
Yeah.
Like, and that's that it's reported.
Yeah.
So it's probably vastly more. But the point is,
we know that a lot of
but the point is there's 32,000 rape pregnancies. I was like, so only a third get a third. They let a third live. And to me, I would have thought that the fucking percentage would have been 0. That all of them are aborted immediately. But no, a third of the women somehow through one means or another are convinced to still have the baby.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked. So even in the worst possible birth scenario.
Yeah, it's usually probably the father is the father, or the priest is the father.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Somebody,
the people doing the coercing are the people who abusing.
Are abusing. And that's usually
that's horrific and insightful.
Those are the horrific parts. Yeah, those are the horrific parts of our world.
Yeah, I like I said, it's half my new album.
It's like from the beginning when I was talking about how I don't like to litter, but I do.
Right.
And I do typically. I get when someone throws something, especially a person that I'm with. If I see someone throw something on the ground and I'm with them, I have picked that up and I've thrown it at them.
Which is kind of analogous to the abortion argument there. If for the anti-abortion, they see someone throw that baby in the dirt, and they're like, "No, pick that up," and they throw it back at them.
Yeah,
keep that baby.
Keep the baby.
But no, I get it in that same sense. It's kind of like baby is litter, and it is literally something
completely.
that will magnify litter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fucking. But yeah,
babies are litter. That's one.
Definitely. They're litter-producing litter.
Yeah.
And it's called a litter oftentimes, a bunch of babies.
A bunch of babies is called a litter, yeah.
There you go.
So there we go.
There's a stand-up bit in the making.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point is only the analogy there of like, I get why people complain from any side of the things. I get why somebody would say, hey, who gives a fuck about litter? We'll have the fucking street sweeper come by and fucking pick that shit up.
Yeah.
Right. Or pay homeless people to do it.
Or pay homeless people.
Yeah,
I think that's. I always think that's a great idea.
Yeah, if they actually do it
instead
of the whole take it to the dump thing.
Well, I mean that's the thing. If government should give them the incentive to pick up, like, because they do offer, like, there's I know here in LA, the local officials were, tearing down the tiny homes that they were building for homeless people.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that shit. I mean, I only moved here a year ago, but.
Yeah.
they were tearing down. They built tiny homes.
There's some companies built tiny homes, but a lot of the times it was mainly just health code,
And the city couldn't find a way to adapt and make it all health code compliant.
Not well. I mean, it depends. I think it depends on location. Can you provide the services? Like if it's just in a parking lot, well, can you run?
Right.
Can you run pipes there? Can
Right.
you get running water, and all that other kind of stuff? And those regulations are kind of set in stone right now. So then there's the process of deregulating certain permit regulations and blah blah blah. There's a lot of red tape.
Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy getting in the way of solutions, which is a common problem with government regulation.
But like if
they're idiots trying to do it.
But if they were like, hey, we'll provide you a place to live, but you have to work, you just pick up the streets. I guess that is indentured servitude, but they're also
without any strings though. Like you get the place to live automatically. But we offer you this job if you want this job.
Yeah, or you can have the job, and you can live on the street, but you have a job, and you can make a little bit of money.
Like all these ways where I was arguing with Finland or whatever, are other countries where, or the possible country that this could be, or whatever, where there's
should be
the
more
basics are
opportunity.
covered, the necessities are covered for. You're not under threat of survival to produce economically. So you can go, you can get a job if you want. You can sit on your ass and be a lazy fuck if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way you're going to move past basic subsistence is if you get off your ass.
Yeah.
But we will not threaten you with starvation. We'll threaten you with not having luxury or not having whatever fancy shit. But
we'll give you food, but we won't give you a place to put it.
No, we'll give you. Well, yeah, we'll give you.
Well, here in America.
We'll give you, I'm saying, but we should give, a small apartment and food. And everything that somebody needs, healthcare, all that shit. Mm-hmm. But again,
there are systems like that we've tried. To give housing, but there's always there's
always
people
stipulations with it, though.
Yeah, people take advantage of it.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like I think people should be allowed to take advantage of it. Like that's what I go way further than even.
But people like you aren't taking advantage of it.
Right.
It's people with money
that are.
That are taking advantage of the
and
situation.
There's also people who are the whole notion of a system is perceived by especially more conservative philosophers whatever to be exploitative or whatever, that you're taking tax money from somebody else and you're giving it to somebody. But I mean that's the whole taxation anything. I mean we're giving way more to the military. So if my only argument is that if you provide everyone with that basic level, like far beyond the universal basic income, but including it. Mm-hmm. All the healthcare benefits or whatever, the stipend every month, a small apartment, and food covered. Mm-hmm. If you have all of that, yes, that person may be a lazy moocher their whole life.
Yeah.
But
I feel like then those people shouldn't be. I shouldn't say
it
because I feel so. Well, I was gonna say we should just send them to North Dakota.
Alaska, I get that impetus.
Wyoming,
I get that.
just
I get that thinking, but let me finish the point. Like, yes, there's if you take the whole statistics of all the people that you saved by doing that, even if 65% of them do jack shit and play fucking video games their whole life, and that's it. Mm-hmm. The 35% that did something, so contributed to the fucking world economically to vastly outweigh the cost.
Yeah.
And therefore, that it's worth it, and then some, to be ethical in that sense as a society. Even from a financial standpoint, even from a conservative standpoint.
But the people who probably do come out of that situation because they have, you said 35% or
and those
you
are
made up number.
Yeah, they're
so
rough.
the made up number.
To me, it doesn't matter if it's 5%.
So that the people who do achieve out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, here's my solution, and it's totally dumb. But people who don't want to, they just want to play video games, they don't want to do anything, then provide them a place.
A North Dakota video game?
Yeah, or something, and then anybody who wants to maybe is saying, hey, I want to progress, but I'm in a tight spot, they have to show that they're going into, like, they want to go.
But I don't want to, like, any of that, you have to prove shit, still reeks of coercion to me.
Yeah. Okay.
So in that sense, as far as my totally hypothetical, speculative, because what I'm arguing also is, and I think I've mentioned it before.
Because proving stuff is so, it's real difficult.
Yeah, and
Especially
again, it's like, who are you to say, like, that this person should prove it? And what I'm also arguing is that a lot of the people that end up homeless, that end up cracking under the pressure, are people who were, you know, we often think of them, and I do a bit about this that's going to be on the album of stand-up that I'm about to release or whatever, is we assume that they're idiots, non-contributing, never going to contribute, fucking morons, or batshit crazy, whatever. I'm arguing that a number of them are like half Asperger geniuses that could have discovered a number of things, but they have these very strong ethics.
Because people didn't believe in them.
Right. People didn't believe them, or they didn't have the chance, they didn't have anybody who could help them out, whatever, and they ended up in a situation where could have done dramatic, especially because they're people like the case we talked about earlier, where they had like such an ethics that they would sacrifice themselves to keep their ethics. Like the classic philosopher Diogenes or whatever, who lived in a fucking barrel at the edge of town or whatever, because he didn't want to like take anything from anyone or whatever, you know, like that kind of thing. That if we want you to have a basic subsistence or whatever, and then if you want to contribute, cool. If you don't, cool. But those people who just have a fucking internal motivation to discover things, whatever, they would be allowed to, and those discoveries could be huge. And we're now losing all of them, and the joke on the album is like, yeah, the guy that fucking, the guy by the side of the road could have cured cancer, but you preferred he shit himself on the off ramp. Like it's why the fuck, you know.
I don't think it's that we prefer to do that. Yeah.
No, but I would say that because we have such a lack of imagination about our social systems, we are preferring it. We are choosing that. We are at least allowing psychopathic leaders to enforce the coercive model that I would say should immediately be dismantled. But of course, that is never going to happen. Because ruthlessness especially in this society, the engine of our society is ruthless, and hopefully it changes, but it probably won't.
It's going to be ruthless, but I feel like that's just something you have to deal with.
I mean,
like, that's what I'm doing right
now.
now.
That's the cognitive dissonance of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I'm seeing it, for me, because I feel a lot of that. I feel like I've been unable to do a lot of things because of a financial situation that I've been. And in a lot of life decisions, like my 20s, I really didn't work. I just
You're fucking
got
off
by.
Right.
I wasn't really fucking off. I was working hard, but I was working. I was pretty much an intern for a comedy club that's doing quite well now. And
they didn't have some stock program for their interns.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, my other job was I was a building manager, so I got free rent, and I could. I made they paid me under $3,000 a year, but everything was paid for: rent, parking space, telephone, internet, everything, electricity. I had no bills. And I would pick up part-time jobs once in a while, but I also just enjoyed the freedom. To, go out and kind of.
But yeah, like you were saying before, though, your economic at various times, maybe not that time, but at various times, economic circumstances limit people's degrees of freedom, and I would say that we need to prevent that. We need to increase people's degrees of freedom.
Yeah. I think because it's terrible. Because right when I started college was when both my dad lost his job, and then my mom, the recession pretty much tanked my mom. Like, business foreclosure on the home. Mom's like, hey, when you come home, do you want to sleep in the back of the van or in the passenger seat? I would never wish that on anybody. But it's also, it took me a while to figure it out. I mean, most of my 20s I had no money, but I was a very happy, productive person.
But still scraping by the whole time. Or a little above that.
And I could, even if I had a part-time job where I was working 15 hours a week, I would have been in a much better financial situation than I am in today. I would have had most of my student loans paid off, but I chose not to. I worked a bunch of different kind of passion careers. I was working with people that had great ideas, but were kind of like in the same position to me. They didn't have the financial building, and I'm a
Mhm.
sucker for that because I'm like, I believe in you. I know we can make money. I know how we can do it. Let's all in, let's do this. Your contacts and, get it going,
Mhm.
Everything, with a few businesses that I've helped kind of start, and even with my mom's, and the businesses that I had as a kid, my first business, was when I was 11 or 12 years old. I started a graffiti removal service. And I also was a vandalizer.
Yeah, that's fucking capitalism right there.
Yeah.
That is the history.
Yeah, because I found out at a young age that businesses could have graffiti on the back of building. If it wasn't visible to the public eye, there could be graffiti on there. But if it was visible to the public eye, you needed to remove it within a certain number of days. So I would target buildings that had a lot of graffiti on the backs, the sides of buildings that weren't visible, and I would just go and I would just do some stupid shit on the front, and then come by, later that week and be like, hey, I'll remove this piece.
And they never put two and two together, right?
No.
Yeah.
And most of the time I just wouldn't get hired because I was a kid. I was a kid
No,
with...
but I'm suggesting that little scheme that you did as a kid
Yeah.
is happening writ large in a variety of ways.
It never really worked
In
out in the way
our
that I had
society.
hoped it would work out in. Usually I would just get paid to remove the graffiti that I
Right.
did. But the reason why I always targeted places with a lot of graffiti on the back,
You wanted them the whole thing.
I'd quote them for the whole thing.
But
And
they were
that-
like, no, just get the front.
Yeah. Just get the front, because they weren't so concerned about that, in the back. But I was like, it was just a service,
Right.
And they would do, I noticed that sometimes it would be removed, and then people would just come back and do it again, and it wasn't me.
But you pulled the chiropractor thing or whatever
Yeah.
initially, like or whatever, and I would argue many psychotherapists or whatever just keep them coming back. Like you're causing the problem, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there are people who joke, that a psychotherapist, what they do is make you more insecure when you're in there, and that keeps you coming back every week. Chiropractor keeps you will just make it seem like they've fixed something for a little bit and keep you coming back every week.
Coming back, yeah.
It's a fucking snake oil salesman kind of thing,
Yeah.
and a scheme whereby, but a lot of our economic system is built on that. Even a lot of medicine, even legitimate stuff, is really, how legitimate is it? Really, your blood pressure is going to improve by 17%. That's not worth the risks of the drug and the cost of the drug and all that. But there's all these half solutions and shit solutions that are proffered as if they're fucking like full solutions.
Well, and
So
that's
even when it's
the
not an
open of
obvious
information,
scam,
I feel like
still-
is also kind of, that's kind of is a downfall. If I just dropped 20 cents, I'm not
Hell
going to
yeah.
lose that.
Hey, there's another dime down
There's
there.
another dime, that's 30
See,
cents.
I could have not told you about that. It's a nickel or a dime.
It's
something.
a dime.
I would have made a dime.
You would have made a dime.
But I tried my best to be honest because I see the reward in that.
Yeah.
Like overall, and yeah, I think society could do well to do that.
Here's one story about littering.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let me
So-
make sure this thing's still going. Hell yeah.
Okay, this is about being honest, and the guy completely dismissed me. So I was with my mom and we were leaving a clean, and a truck with moving a bunch of furniture, an Xbox table, couch, or like a love seat. He turns a corner, his truck bed opens up, and everything tumbles out. Everything. Just right onto the street. Guy doesn't notice. Keeps driving. He goes up to the light. He drops a Twinkie wrapper out his window. And we pull up right next to him because we're like, hey dude, did you not realize you just lost everything? And I rolled out my window, and that's right when he dropped it. I was like, hey dude, you just dropped something. And he kind of was like, fuck you, dude. And I'm like, no, your Xbox, your fucking couch, everything's like, oh my god,
So he littered after inadvertently littering a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
The point of that story.
I know it's just a good story.
Oh,
I
okay,
like
hell
the
yeah.
story.
No, but it's.
But I was being honest, like,
Yeah.
But he, like, my honesty is just, hey man, you dropped something, but then he drops it, then dismisses me for like, I just dropped a Twinkie. You know,
Right,
why the fuck do I
yeah.
need, like, I don't need to give
Right,
a shit
fuck
about this.
you for judging me, or whatever that whole thing.
But I was like, no, I'm just letting you know, like, you just,
your whole truck
your
of stuff
whole,
went
like,
there,
karma has already struck you.
Right,
Like,
before he did what he did. Right.
Yeah.
He was such in the habit of littering that he littered all of his possessions.
Yeah.
Mistakenly.
But, you know, me and my mom could have just went back and picked up that stuff and...
Yeah. But no, it's better. And that's the thing. What I was saying, the more desperate someone is, like, I like to think, like, yeah, if somebody dropped money or whatever, I'd be like, hey, you dropped $20 or whatever. You know, I have no interest in fucking, like, oh, even if it's dropped like that or whatever, no interest in that. But I can't say, I don't know how I would act if I was homeless. If I was suddenly living in my car even, which is a distinct possibility at some point, in which case the podcast will not be video again. So if you see it go back to audio, well, something happened. But yeah, it's if I don't know that I would do that same thing. I would like to think that I would still be like, hey man, you dropped your $20, and then hope for a reward from the person. But you know, in which case now I don't give a shit about that. But then I might, or I might just keep the $20. I don't know what I would be under the pressure of desperation.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to go with it before. When people drop something, if that person is rude, you know, before they even know what I'm about to, then I'm
inclined to hesitate.
It's just like, oh, fuck you.
I'll take your TV then.
I'll take your TV.
Right.
I'll take
I would
money.
not, but I would say, like, I would explain that to them. You were just a dick to me, and I was about to help you out, and you didn't know I was going to help you out, so you were a dick because you're always a dick or whatever. But like, you should have maybe not been.
There's been too many times in my life where I picked up a wallet on the ground and definitely taken the money out and sent the wallet in the mail.
I've never done that, but I can't say that. No. My point is that the vast majority of people aren't horrible people. They're just hit by different circumstances, different levels of desperation.
It wasn't even that to desperation. Usually when I would find the money, it was usually it was just like lost out at night. And there's a couple times where I've returned everything. It hasn't been every time, but me and my dad used to wake up like every morning and, you know, go walk around the city and look for money, just on the ground.
Because people would drop shit.
Yeah. Usually parking meters. We look at, you know, anywhere that was a lot of foot traffic. Right.
So in that case, a wallet's a big score.
So it's like it was a game to us. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's also that was useful. You know, whatever you were. I mean, obviously, if a person's already doing that, they're in a position of more desperation than the stockbroker down the street who's making $500K a year or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
Like I bought a bike with all the pennies that we found. We collected just the pennies. I don't know what. My dad usually took the money. I don't know what he was doing, but I just bought booze and shit with it.
But yeah, but the argument I was just tossing out there was that it's possible that there's a whole. As desperation increases, ethics decrease. That there's a indirect or whatever inverse relationship between increasing desperation, and so ethics go down.
You think that kind of just
you could grasp that shit.
As a person ages, do you think that kind of desperation comes? It kind of like awakens more. Like
well, I mean, definitely the more desperate
you're more aware of it.
Yeah.
The more aware you are of your desperation.
Yeah, and the more if you've been desperate for a long time, at a certain point, it does probably increasingly affect you.
Yeah.
But in general, I'm just saying, like, the path to it leads to the path to increasingly ruthless. Again, if the environment is treating you ruthlessly, why the fuck shouldn't you be ruthless? That's a cognitive dissonance. It's increasing, like, you gotta just adapt to your surroundings.
Yeah.
It's understandable. I don't approve of it, but it's understandable, and I think it's the society's role to correct that in advance.
I think it's person's moral decision. When my father, a week out of prison, he is walking early in the morning. I'm not with him. It was a weekday, but he would do the change walk thing on a regular basis. That was just his routine. ATM dropped. Money visible. Whoever, like, it just fell open. Father just got out of prison. He's looking at the thing.
That's a hell of a thing to happen right after you get out of prison.
Yeah, right?
Because it's still illegal to fucking grab that shit. You go right back into prison.
You know, in a ruthless sort of world, you know, I mean, he had just, and his life was going better. He got into school. He had goals and whatnot, but that money would have helped him, you know? an opportunity like
That
that.
might have been on camera too, so you
Oh
might
yeah,
have
it's
been
always
like
on camera.
right back into prison. Yeah.
And all fingerprints and everything.
Yeah.
He told me that next time that happens, that he was trying to convince me that I should spend more time with him because of things like that. Because he told me your fingerprints aren't on record yet, so you could have gotten that money.
So that's what he was thinking.
That's what he was thinking.
Not like.
But he was also
like, man,
he didn't do it. He also
but
didn't do it.
But he didn't do it,
know?
because he knew he'd get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he could have found you. ATM drops like that. You walk by, you're pretty far away. Camera's probably not going to catch you.
Right.
You walk home, or you walk somewhere else. You take your shirt off. You put it around your face. You go find gloves. You go take them off.
Jeez. No, but to me, it's just like, again, if I was in a dire straits or whatever.
See, I wouldn't even do that, even if.
I wouldn't do it. That's my point.
I would
like,
do it.
But
I would do it completely.
But I wouldn't. But
ATM
but there's
drops
also
over in front of me.
Well, first of all, you're gonna get caught. That's the first thing. That apparently a lot of people who commit crimes, no matter what they are,
I always think
they don't understand the probabilities. They haven't done the calculus of the range of ways that they can get caught, which means that almost certainly they're going to get caught. And even if they don't get caught, it creates a pattern of behavior where you keep doing similar sorts of things, so that you're like gambling at a roulette wheel. You are going to be caught eventually, and then it's the same thing.
But the thing with that particular situation
Right.
is the likelihood of that ever happening to you again.
Right.
An ATM just falling open.
Yeah. So you gotta take advantage of it.
You gotta take advantage.
It's just
there was those tornado. You drop a coin.
Is that a gift from God argument that you make in court?
Yeah, gift from God. I'm on a mission from God. But those you drop a quarter or any sort of change and it spins around and around and around and around. There's one at my dad's university in like a science kind of. It was a display room.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of little gadgets the students created over the years that were like blew people's minds. But they had that thing in there. And there was a return slot. So you drop your thing in and your money's supposed to come back. Well, I stuck my head down there and I noticed that there was a pile of change. And I started taking other gizmos and gadgets that were long enough to scoop it all down, because again, it was a game. Finding money or getting money has always been a game for me.
Right.
Which is something I've actually never thought of until today. As it kind of was a game, and still a game.
Yeah.
I have 2 jars, those water jugs full of change. One's for pennies, one's for denominations of 5s. And I'm filling them up. It's $500 between.
No, it is similar. A lot of role-playing games, you have like a cash meter or whatever, a gold coin thing or whatever, So it is very much the games are modeled off the game of reality, which is again, even before human society, it's a pretty ruthless game. I don't believe in the whole creator thing, but like if there's a God, he's pretty ruthless, and that is a logical proof from ancient Greece actually. Like that was a disproof either there's no God, or he's kind of an asshole. Like that was there's an actual airtight logical argument for but it's that kind of because of the environment or whatever you're I forgot the original, but it's there for the environment has an effect. The initial environment of Earth, pretty cool place, but a little bit shitty, and so human society kind of mapped according to that. I would argue a lot of governments mapped according to that. Hey, let's be, and I think I did on my Trashing Religion album, stand-up, all downloadable for free from the same place you got this, is like...
All on YouTube?
Yeah. And chrisheist.com, but like that's if you want to download the shit or whatever. But yeah, that it's a little bit evil. You have to, like, if you're a government, make it a little bit evil. If it's too good, it's going to fold.
Well, it has to be true to human nature.
Well, I'm saying I don't think it should be that. I'm saying it is that way because we kind of we're dumb primates. We just saw nature and saw how it's for the most part good, but a little bit shitty, and went, let's mirror that.
Yeah.
And there is some success to that, but there's also it's a myopic, sort of oversimplified view, and the degree of complexity or the closer approximation of a model to reality, the better the model is. You know, back thousands of years ago, we didn't know dick about this world, so it was, you know, I understand why it ended up the way it did, but we should be smarter now. That whole argument about political science and sociology being to the same technological level as physics and chemistry, we could really solve a lot of this shit. And
yeah, I guess I don't know. I just feel like the two are, one's more undefined, or it changes more often than.
Right, it is more difficult too.
Yeah,
Human systems are more complicated than electrons.
Change much faster than.
Yeah,
technology can change pretty quick, but.
Right, but it's also, that's an argument people made for a long time. Yeah, physics is difficult, but it's easier to solve and write math equations for a falling ball than it is
because
for
that's
a human.
Constant.
Yeah, exactly. A human being could do anything unpredictable. It's very there's stochastic systems, chaotic systems. It gets very complicated to model human systems, but it is doable now more than ever. We have some math and science to do that, and so we should apply it to make a less ruthless world. Maybe. Not likely. I'm expecting the worst. I'm expecting an increasingly ruthless world at an accelerated pace until it's just a fucking hell on earth.
I wouldn't say world, I think, because I don't think the entire world's ever going to go chaotic all at once.
No, it's always been a phase.
It could happen in the United States.
No, and human society's always had some great aspects to it, and then I also, on the upcoming stand-up album, say that the entire history of human society has been a dystopian society, because it's horrific in so many ways as well. However good it is, there's still so many horrific things about it.
Yeah, but that's why comedy is such a great thing, because the most horrific things in life, you can find a way to cope with it.
Yeah, exactly, and
I feel like
you know,
that's
about
also,
it in different ways.
It makes it
because it's not just a coping; it's also because cognitive dissonance is like a coping sort of thing. But I think like comedy can also help expand consciousness. It can also help.
Yeah.
You can think of ideas. Even somebody having a shit idea, like as a joke, can help someone even notice, oh, there's other possibilities for that scenario. I hadn't even considered. So some genius hears a joke about somebody pretending that sucking testicles is a fucking solution to something that it's not at all. But then immediately you go,
they're like tea bags.
Oh shit.
I'm going to revolutionize
right, or whatever it is. Yeah,
bags.
exactly. Whatever it is, they think of an actual solution to that problem because they hadn't even thought of that thing as being conceptualized in that way. So there's all sorts of, in addition to comedy helping people cope with shit, it can also help people discover shit. It can also help people think about shit in different ways. And thinking about shit in different ways can not only help people discover things, but it can help any number of things, including things we know nothing about. But thinking about things in different ways is a very lucrative endeavor in general, you know. And yeah, with how much? I'm gonna check the time because I think we've gone. Yeah, we're way. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we're good. You know.
Good.